MyAgLife is brought to you by ICL Growing Solutions, a leading global fertilizer manufacturer and exclusive miner of polyhalite, marketed as polysulfate. Learn more about ICL's cutting-edge crop nutrition solutions at icl-growingsolutions.us.
Hey, it's Jesse Waters from Fox News Channel. Hope to see you at my Ag Night on November 2nd. It's going to be a night you will not want to miss.
As a disclaimer, views expressed in interviews are solely those of the individuals and do not necessarily represent those of MyAgLife, JCS Marketing, and its employees.
Welcome to MyAgLife, where we cover your world in agriculture. This podcast is powered by the top publications in the industry: West Coast Nut, Progressive Crop Consultant, and Organic Farmer Magazine. Here is your host, Taylor Chalstrom.
All right, hi, welcome to MyAgLife. Today we're talking with Jason Haegele, North American Agronomy Lead with ICL Growing Solutions, about the rising demand of water-soluble fertilizers and selecting the right product in a sea of options. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, Taylor. Great to be here with you and your listeners.
Yeah, great to have you here today. So, Jason, in recent years, there's been this globally increasing demand for environmentally friendly fertilizers that, can significantly improve crop nutrient uptake, and water-soluble fertilizers, kind of fit those needs there. I'm just curious, how do they work and how might they really address some of the issues that a lot of growers in California are facing these days?
Right. Great question. Yeah, so I would agree. Over the last decade, we've seen a greater emphasis on, the 4R approach to nutrient management, and I assume many are familiar with that kind of terminology. But as a review, it's timing, rate, source, and placement. And so that's led to an explosion of enhanced efficiency fertilizers, water-soluble fertilizers being one example, as well as a greater emphasis on different types of application methods, like fertigation. And the goal is really to make the most out of every pound of fertilizer applied to the field. And so you think about a drip irrigation system or a micro sprinkler type of system in California. You already have the opportunity for greater control of timing and placement just because of the way those systems are constructed. So the conversation can really turn to be more about choosing among dry granular fertilizers, so the more traditional commodity fertilizers like potash or potassium sulfate, dry water soluble fertilizers that we'll talk more about, as well as liquid sources of nutrition to meet the various economic and agronomic considerations of the grower. And so although I think there'll always be a fit and a need for commodity liquid and granular dry fertilizers, I like the ability of water soluble fertilizers to precisely deliver the nutrients that the crop needs, through combining different water soluble fertilizer options. For example, potassium nitrate, monopotassium phosphate, calcium nitrate, magnesium nitrate, and all the various derivatives and combinations that growers and consultants are familiar with.
Definitely. Just from your own personal experience, Jason, when you converse with growers on the job, I mean, what's something that, in California, for example, keeps them up at night that would lead you to maybe recommend a water-soluble fertilizer to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a combination of things. Certainly water is a huge challenge and consideration in California. It has been in recent years, and so that leads to more efficient irrigation systems, and with that you have the ability to also deliver very precise nutrient applications as well, and with those precise applications of water and nutrition, you want to apply exactly what the crop needs and when it needs it, and that's what a water soluble fertilizer or a combination of water soluble fertilizers allows you to do.
Definitely. And Jason, being that the fertilizer is, going into the water source, some growers, may worry in the state about their water quality affecting the efficacy of a water-soluble fertilizer, maybe those with high saline water. So tell me about the interaction, between those two things, the water quality and the efficacy there, and how that can really influence some of these agronomic and product input decisions that the growers are facing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So, Think about different sources of water. I mean, there's groundwater, and groundwater quality can vary considerably. There's surface water, particularly from snowmelt. In some cases, there may be availability of reclaimed water that brings some challenges with it. And so we think about all of the kind of variability and range of water chemistry parameters that exist. Things like pH, EC, bicarbonate levels, et cetera. These do have an impact on the efficacy of applied fertilizers and ultimately crop productivity. One really key example is to think about pH and the influence or the relationship of pH on overall phosphorus availability and the ability to combine normally antagonistic nutrients like calcium and phosphorus in fertigation. When we think about high pH water, particularly groundwater, and high pH soil as well, these tend to be always high in calcium. And so calcium and phosphate under these high pH conditions form calcium phosphate, which is the same type of mineral that's in your bones, your teeth. It's highly insoluble, and then it precipitates in the irrigation system, and no one likes a plugged emitter or micro sprinkler head. And so similarly, directly combining fertilizer, calcium sources like calcium nitrate with phosphate fertilizers is usually not recommended. And so, one approach to circumvent this is to manage pH through water acidification. One example is through maybe an acidic formulation of a water-soluble fertilizer like ICL's PEC acid that has a pH in solution of 2.2. There's also approaches of phosphoric acid injection, sulfuric acid injection to buffer irrigation water. But when you consider all these different approaches together, it really points to the importance of considering the pH that you're starting with, and then managing that pH to maximize the availability of key nutrients like phosphorus and calcium in that fertigation application.
Definitely. I mean, so when a grower is looking at a water-soluble fertilizer in that instance, I mean, are you recommending that they're going out and doing like kind of a water quality test themselves and then choosing based on that? What do you kind of think there?
Yeah, I think it's very key to have a water quality test. No different than having a soil analysis. You can't manage things unless you have the ability to measure them and know what you're starting with, and then know if you're making an impact or not through the management and input decisions that you make. And I know in California with different potentially different options for irrigation water, groundwater versus surface water. I think this past year with the high amount of winter rains and snow, there's been more access to surface water. And so surface water is going to have a different chemical profile and water quality parameters compared to groundwater. So knowing what you're starting with is very important to devise the right right management approaches.
Certainly. Is there any instance where a grower's water quality would be too poor for these water-soluble fertilizers to be efficacious, or can they work in kind of any scenario there?
I in my experience or opinion, water-soluble fertilizers have a fit, in almost, every situation. Certainly, pH and the necessity of acidification becomes very important in a lot of circumstances. But thinking about ICL as a company and ICL's history in Israel, challenges there are very there's a lot of very significant challenges to growers in the desert of Israel with poor water quality, whether that's saline water, groundwater, reclaimed water, et cetera. And ICL has developed a lot of different approaches to overcome those types of situations.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Jason. We're going to be right back after a word from our sponsors here.
Growth is at the heart of everything we stand for. And at ICL, we don't just talk about what might be possible in the future. We actively work with you to create it every day. Our full range of plant nutrition products, including controlled release, water-soluble, liquid, and specialty granular fertilizers, may help you grow more with less. Learn more at icl-growing-solutions.us.
Join us for an unforgettable evening with Jesse Waters, co-host of Fox News at the International Agri-Center in Tulare, California. Tickets are extremely limited for this one-night-only experience, and they will sell out.
Hey, it's Jesse Waters from Fox News Channel. Hope to see you at my Ag Night on November 2nd. It's going to be a night you will not want to miss.
Don't miss your only chance to see Jesse Waters here in the heart of California on November 2nd. Reserve your spot now at myaglife.com/myagnite.
Hi, we're back talking with Jason Haegele, North American Agronomy Lead with ICL Growing Solutions, about the rising demand of water-soluble fertilizers and selecting the right product in a sea of options. So Jason, on that note, kind of with the sea of products that are available on the market, there are a lot, of course. How would a grower go about selecting the right water-soluble fertilizer for their operation?
Mhm. That's a really good question. And I think this is where the art of agriculture comes into play, and really combining the economic considerations and the agronomic considerations as well. The grower and the consultant will understand the quantities of nutrients that are needed to raise a specific crop, and so with that baseline knowledge, you can then select the inputs that best optimize return on investment for the grower. We've already talked about the influences of water quality, so I think that's a great starting point to understand, for example, whether or not acidification is needed from a water-soluble fertilizer. Another example to consider would be salinity levels in irrigation water. Water-soluble fertilizers can come in both chloride-free or chloride-containing water-soluble options or formulations, and so depending on your water quality, that may be an option or a consideration. And also I would keep in mind that product quality can vary substantially for common water soluble fertilizer products like monopotassium phosphate or MKP. Although one option may be less costly, it could be produced in a way that makes it less soluble and more of a headache for the grower, or it could be derived from raw materials like phosphoric acid that contain higher levels of heavy metals compared to other options. So I would encourage the grower to talk with their supplier about water soluble fertilizers and really understand the properties of the products that they're considering, as well as the quality of those products.
Definitely. With a lot of these types of product recommendations as well, would you also recommend growers be talking to their CCAs about this? Are the CCAs out there kind of knowledgeable about these water soluble fertilizers as well?
Yeah, I think every grower's got their trusted advisor, whether that's a CCA or PCA, crop consultant, et cetera. And water soluble fertilizers are by no means new. They've been in the market for a number of different number of years. More common in some parts of the United States than others, but California especially should be familiar with water soluble fertilizers. And I think if a grower asks around, they'll find someone that has a lot of knowledge of the various product options that are out there, experience different product options, and can provide a trusted recommendation.
Certainly. And one question, Jason, that I understand may come up often, when thinking about water-soluble fertilizers is, whether the product formulation matters when you're thinking about fertigation versus foliar application. What can you say to that note?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a few different considerations to think about in terms of fertigation versus foliar. And just as an example, I'll use three phosphorus potassium fertilizer examples from ICL. One's PEC acid, has an analysis of 0,60,20. That's a very acidic product. And then you have the monopotassium phosphate that we've you mentioned a few times. That is an analysis of 0,52,34. That's mildly acidic, so that has a pH of about 4.5 compared to PEC acid, that has a pH of 2.2. And then the third option would be High Peak, that has an analysis of 0,44,44. So all three of these products can deliver phosphorus and potassium, but they have different pH profiles, with PEC acid being very acidic, monopotassium phosphate being slightly acidic, and High Peak being neutral. And so why is this important to a foliar application? Oftentimes with the foliar application, you're not just applying the nutrition, but you're combining it with crop protection chemistries, whether that's a fungicide, insecticide, maybe a herbicide in some instances, and pH can affect the efficacy of those crop protection chemistries. So understanding what you want to apply with the nutrition can be important in selecting a foliar option for your application. Other considerations would be whether that foliar formulation contains a surfactant or a biostimulant component to help with the uptake of that nutrition in the leaf. It becomes particularly important for harder to take up nutrients like micronutrients. And then also related to micronutrients, there's the question of chelation. When we're making a soil application of micronutrients, we often use a chelating compound called EDTA. For a foliar application, that may not be necessary. We may be more focused on using amino acids to help not only with the uptake of those micronutrients in the plant, but also the movement of those micronutrients or translocation of those micronutrients throughout the tree or the crop that we're applying it to. So for a foliar application, consider the pH of the solution, whether it contains a surfactant, and then the chelating type of compound for micronutrient containing products.
Definitely. I'm assuming for at least, some growers, they'd be kind of maybe doing a combination of both throughout the season. What is the kind of the time period of applying a water-soluble fertilizer? Is there a specific time of the season that they're being applied?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the crop that you're applying these water solubles to, whether it's a fertigation application or foliar application. Certainly with fertigation program, that could be potentially a season-long approach where there'll be different water-soluble products or combinations of water-soluble products used at different times to match what's going on in that crop at the time, whether it's vegetative growth or reproductive growth, nut fill, etc. With a foliar application, just focus on micronutrients as an example. Specific micronutrients could be more or less effective at different points during the development of the crop, and so depending on the knowledge of what's going on in the crop physiologically, that'll drive a lot of those product decisions.
Okay, thanks for that, Jason. Well, we've hit kind of all the big marks on water-soluble fertilizers. Anything else you'd like to add regarding these products here, Jason?
Mm-hmm. In terms of the base, water-soluble fertilizers or the nutrient compounds that are used, monopotassium phosphate is an example. I really don't see anything novel coming down the road. I think the exciting developments that will come in the world of water solubles and revolve around biostimulants, biologicals, nanotechnology, some of these newer approaches, and how they're added to existing water-soluble fertilizer formulations to increase nutrient availability and uptake by the plant. And ultimately that leads us back to kind of where we started the conversation around global demand for environmentally friendly fertilizer use. We know we need nutrients. We'll need to continue to apply nutrients, but the question becomes, how can we make that as efficient as possible? How can we get as much of the nutrition applied to the soil or to the foliage into the plant, where it's going to have an impact on the the yield of the crop, the quality of the crop, and the return on investment to the grower.
Definitely. Thanks, Jason. We appreciate you being here today and talking about, again, the rising demand of water-soluble fertilizers and selecting the right product in a sea of options. So thanks again for being here, Jason.
Yeah. Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate it.
This is Taylor Chalstrom from MyAgLife.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe for updates, exclusive content, and more at myaglife.com.